CIO News. I am Khushbu Soni, your host for the broadcast and chief editor at CIO News. This is our exclusive interview series on the topic of digital transformation on the edge with our digital leaders of India. It is a recorded session and will be available on our website at ciunews.co.in and our CIO News LinkedIn handle. Let me dive in introducing my guest for today. He is Nitin Singhvi, the Associate Vice President Technology at CalSoft. Nitin is an excellent tech innovation leader with solution engineering, team building, management, and business skills expertise. Nitin is being as an engineering leader, and his forte is to lead the teams of architects, engineering delivery, technology incubators, and developers. Nitin is also passionate about trends in the technology and has built multiple efficient, responsible, and sharp teams and delivered technically challenging projects in his career. Nitin, it's an absolute pleasure to have you.
Yeah, thanks, Khushbu, for having me here.
Great. Nitin, to begin with, I had my first question for you. If you can give us a quick brief about CalSoft, would love to hear it coming from you. So if you can just give a brief on that first.
Oh, sure. Yeah, it would be my pleasure to introduce CalSoft. So it's calsoftinc.com, the website. And CalSoft is a 23-year-old product engineering services and technology innovation company. For last 23 years, we are focused mainly on the infrastructure space, with things like networking, storage, virtualization, cloud, machine learning, IoT, 5G, edge computing, and microservices, Kubernetes, and so on. We have also worked a lot with startups, and some of our startups, the customers actually, they got eventually acquired by the likes of Google, VMware, Cisco, Juniper, and so on. And typically our customers are the likes of Intel, VMware, Cisco, Hitachi, HP, NetApp. These are the kind of customers we work with. So it's a very strong technology domain that we are into. And we are located in India, in Pune and Bangalore, as well as in Bay Area and California, US.
Okay, awesome. My next question is, Nitin, in this whole COVID era that we've been, what is the way forward for contributing to this growing digital economy as for you?
Right. Yeah, I think to be able to answer that question, I think we need to understand, what areas actually became important, from the COVID perspective, right? Digital economy has always been there, but post-COVID era, what are the areas that really became important while all of us were like bound to our homes, right? I think, I can think of maybe top 3 or 4 like reliable networking capability for anyone to connect anywhere and anytime, right? So that network connectivity was absolutely required. And initially, when COVID started, I think in India, everyone in the technology space was kind of worried how our infrastructure is going to cope up, right? But I think, India and all our network providers, I think they have done a phenomenal job of keeping up with the demand. The second was about digital security, and there are a lot of different facets. More we talk, more it opens up, right? So digital security was pretty critical. I think from the end customer perspective, online shopping experience and digital payments, so that they have less interaction, physical interaction. I think that was critical. And last but not the least, I think the telemedicine or telehealthcare. I think that was also pretty important, right? So in my opinion, all these areas and the associated technologies, that make all of these applications or connectivity happen, like SD-WAN and 5G, blockchain for, secure transaction, security in general, online shopping, telehealthcare, payments. I think all these areas will see tremendous innovation over next few years, and tremendous opportunity or the expenditure from the enterprise customers, right?
Right.
Uh, and from the digital economy perspective, if you look at the parameters which will make digital economy successful, uh, few things like anytime, anywhere access, price benefit, of course, security. You want all your transactions to be more secure, and user experience, right?
Right.
And I think with edge computing and things, applications like AR, VR, video 360, and so on, the user experience is bound to, improve multifold, right?
Correct.
If you're not having a physical interaction, but still you want that, user experience as if you're literally in that shop, right?
True.
Or in a stadium, right? So
True.
things like that, user experience is going to improve with 5G and edge computing. I think, all this will push the digital evolution to the next stage. That's what my opinion is.
Absolutely. I think very correctly highlighted these points. Great. My next question is what has been your learnings and the organization's learning that you've taken up as pointers in this whole pandemic, and how does it help you to plan the future of the whole digital ecosystem that you're planning to build?
Yeah, good question. So being an engineering services organization in the high tech world, and specializing in the product development, we face some very unique challenges. I named a few customers, right? To be able to deliver the products on time and on quality, uh, you know, in spite of being in the COVID situation, I think we had some very unique challenges. The first one was, productivity and managing the programs or the projects when people are working from home, right? A completely different paradigm shift from
Right.
what we used to do before March last year and what we started doing post March last year, right?
True.
Completely different way of working, communication, and all that, right? So that was, one challenge. The second was communication itself, within the team, across the organization, as well as with the customer.
Right.
We had never done that, or nobody had ever done that, before or prior to COVID, right?
Right.
Onboarding the new engineers, because we are a very, a quick or fast growing company.
Right.
Onboarding of new engineers, that was a big challenge. And from the IT perspective, of course, we covered about networking, connectivity, and so on. Those were like the given challenges. But I think data protection was another big challenge. If the engineers are working from home, how do you protect their data? Not just take the backup, but also how do you ensure that the data is not being misused, right?
Right.
If everyone is working from the office premise, it's very easy to enforce some of these policies.
Right.
But for the long duration and with pretty much the entire workforce working from home, I think data protection was another big challenge, right?
True.
So those are, the kind of lessons or the challenges that we faced and the lessons that came along with it.
Yeah.
I think, not just Calso, but the entire industry actually has learned a lot.
Correct.
One good thing that has come out, in my opinion, is that we don't have to restrict to local geographies or cities for talent. Right now, we can hire from across the country, and why not across the globe also, right?
Right.
And I think work from home can work even for the high tech engineering companies like ourselves, right?
Right.
And in terms of plans to create, digital ecosystem to be able to continue delivering to our customers, I think productivity, communication tools, you'll see a lot of innovation and investments being put by the engineering as well as the enterprise organizations. I think there will be a lot more expenditure in the cloud, security, data protection, all these areas. And of course, also the process wise, now a lot of deliveries, project management, will have to be done with work from home first, kind of mindset. So there are a lot of learnings, but also the evolution from the engineering perspective.
Very true. Great. Um, okay. My next question is, how do you reimagine cloud? I mean, there has been a lot of acceleration on cloud adoption in this whole COVID era. So, how do you reimagine cloud in this post-COVID world? What are your thoughts on hybrid cloud and effective post-COVID strategy for the cloud deployments?
Great. Yeah, I think as I said, anytime, anywhere access with high reliability and security, that's going to be the mantra, right? And today we can only think of cloud enabling these kind of access and feasibility, right? So cloud adoption, for last 10 odd years has continued, and it will continue. There is no reason that it will stop. And absolutely, the point that in the aftermath of COVID, the cloud is picking up already big time. We do see a lot of our customers migrating their applications into the cloud, and not just that, a lot of applications are being built in the cloud native form and the SaaS or SaaSified format now, right? Previously, a lot of our customers used to build very data center specific products, which enterprise customers would buy and put it in their data centers, right? Be it security, networking, storage, data protection, and whatnot, right? But now we see a lot of our customers keeping the cloud in mind over next 5 to 10 years, and have started building products and solutions enabling the customers to be able to deploy their applications and migrate their applications in the cloud, right? Even if some products are not SaaSified or cloud based, I think more and more setups, your test infrastructure, your code, all of that has to be accessible anytime and anywhere again, and which is what cloud can enable. And hence, even for non-cloud products, a lot of infrastructure will still be moving into the cloud, right? And going forward, you will have less and less people available on the IT side to help. And hence a lot of automation, monitoring, closed loop automation. You'll see more and more innovation happening in all these areas, right? You'll also see cloud management provided as a service, right? A lot of telcos that we talk to, they are bringing up or coming up with the business plans where they go to enterprises and say, while we provide you the network, we can also provide you the cloud infrastructure, and not just provide, but also manage it for you, right? And they can have the shared services providing that managed service to a lot of enterprises, right? So that's one of the new things that we'll start to see more and more as we proceed in the post COVID era. So that's one aspect, and I think that the second part of your question was about the hybrid cloud. I think we'll see the acceleration in adoption as well as innovation in the hybrid cloud space.
Yeah.
In next, I think, couple of years. There are various technical and compliance issues because of which you can't move everything into the public cloud, be it your critical databases or your security keys, right?
Right.
And because of that, these things will continue to be on-prem while your application middleware could move to cloud. And there has to be a marriage of public cloud and the private cloud, right? So that's going to happen. And the last thing that I would like to really add, very interesting aspect, is whatever my discussions have been with a lot of our CEOs, CTOs, and product management people on the customer side. I have come across at least 15 customers who are starting to starting their new programs to build the products and solutions focused on the hybrid cloud, right?
Right.
And as I said, there's a lot to achieve. The market on the hybrid cloud is not mature today. Of course, you have products like Google Anthos and VMware, VMC and Tanzu and whatnot, right? but I think the innovation has just started, as I can imagine.
Correct. Correct. Great. Wait, and what my next question is, from the security perspective, you did highlight a lot of security challenges that were identified. I mean, that was one of the key priorities. I would not say it as challenges, but because all the data started moving to cloud rapidly, security had, and because of the work from home, scenario that we had, security was one of the key priorities. So if you can highlight some of the strategies that you leveraged, and what does the cybersecurity world look like in the coming
Mhm.
times?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and before I answer the post-COVID aspect of security, let me tell you, I think security for last 5 to 10 years has been an extremely hot technology innovation
Yeah.
area, and purely because we have seen many security breaches and ransomwares and whatnot, right? So, in my opinion, that's one of the areas that has seen most number of innovation funding, products being developed, and companies being formed in the startup space. That has to be security in last 5 to 10 years, right? And you can think of security as a race, and whether you like it or not, but attackers are always, I would say, 2 steps ahead of the solutions that the industry has been developing, right?
Right.
So whenever a new security product or a new security solution comes in, invariably you'll see attackers are able to break in next maybe 6 to 8 months, right? So attackers are clearly 2 steps ahead, right? But with COVID and post-COVID, what has actually accelerated and magnified the security problem is the way we have been working, right? The way we connect, the way we work, and the way we communicate.
Yeah.
All of that has changed significantly in the post-COVID era, right? And this has given a new surface area, a new attack surface area for the attackers, right? And now we can think of lot of potential areas where the security breach can happen, which was not possible in past, or which was not thought of in the past, right? So security absolutely has become extremely crucial, and it has to keep up with the pace in next 5 years before it becomes kind of a bottleneck for any kind of innovation and the digital ecosystem or economy per se, right? So that's one aspect. In terms of the strategies, right? The security strategies.
Yeah.
I would say, some of the basic yet extremely crucial security aspects would be zero trust security.
Yeah.
Never trust, right? And always verify, right? Uh, Previously, before COVID, you would see a lot of CIOs talking about trust but verify, right? But I would say, going forward, it has to be never trust, always verify.
Yeah.
That's going to be a paradigm shift, right? And also only need to know kind of access, right? Even if I'm, a vice president, if there are 10 applications inside the company, when I was working from office, invariably I would have access to all of them, even if I wouldn't need them, right?
Correct.
But now I think the access has to be only on the need to know basis, right? That's the big paradigm shift or the strategy I think most of the enterprises will go after and should go after.
Right. True.
Second is micro segmentation. Because we have a distributed workforce, your vendors and your partners are distributed all across the globe. You can never be sure who's going to be under the attack, right?
True.
And hence micro segmentation, absolutely is required, so that even if one aspect of your network gets compromised, the lateral movement of the attackers can be restricted, right?
Correct.
So micro segmentation would play a big role.
Yeah.
Third is secure device onboarding, because now I can not just use my office laptop, I can probably use my phone, I can use my tab and whatnot, right?
Right.
Excuse me. And in that regards, I think secure device onboarding. We heard that in the BYOD era, but to be honest, I don't think BYOD really kicked off as much as it promised. But with post-COVID era, I think BYOD and hence secure device onboarding would become crucial. And last two, I think, will be data protection, which is what I was talking about, and the ransomware protection. I think these are probably 4 or 5 key strategies for everyone to look out for and prepare their organizations and enterprise deployments against any kind of security attacks.
Right. Right. Great insights. I think very few, challenges that we heard were being taken care of in this COVID era. But now that there is a lot of strategies that have come in place, micro segmentation, like you mentioned, micro segmentation is one of the key things to actually look at, right? So, great point. My next question is, how can AI help? In the development of the digital workforce after the pandemic.
Yeah, absolutely. I think AI has big promises. I would say the generation for AI has just started. But I would say AI has started taking small steps toward much larger impact from the digital economy perspective or digital workplace perspective as well, right? Things like Cortana, from Office 365. Nowadays, I get daily email from Cortana saying these are the action items that you have discussed over the emails, and you need to take care of them, right? Or even on weekly basis, there is a good report that gets sent out analyzing where are you spending more time, who are the collaborators that you are spending more time with, and how many collaborators you have worked with in last 1 week. So good insights, but I think these are baby steps, and much larger things need to be achieved from the digital workplace perspective. And I can already see few areas where AI can make an impact. Things like productivity analytics, right? When the workforce was working in the office premise, it was easy for the managers to track their progress, just go to somebody's cubicle and get the status and so on. Not possible anymore, right? There are different type of tools which are being used across the organization, and analytics can help tie everything together and provide you with great tools around productivity analytics, right? From the workplace perspective, I think that's going to be the next big innovation area. The next thing is, it would sound very rudimentary, but in my opinion, it's extremely important. That's AI-enabled testing. I already see many customers who have like thousands of test cases for their products, right? And with Agile as well as DevOps practices, production deployments are happening at least tens of times a day, if not hundreds of times a day, right? And for so many deployments, it's absolutely impossible for somebody to execute like thousands of tests and validate the application. And I think that's where AI can actually help big time, not just for the product companies, but also for the enterprises as they upgrade their applications with whatever vendors keep providing, right? AI can look at what kind of changes are being made, what modules are getting changed, what components within the modules are getting changed. These components, how are they connected with each other? And hence, even if there is one line of code change, what all needs to be validated and verified, only AI can help you. It's absolutely not possible to do all this analytics in the manual fashion and to be able to keep pace with like tens of deployments per day. I think there AI can and will play a big role. And last but not the least, I think because of cloud, hybrid cloud, on-prem, and at the edge infrastructure, automated or closed loop automation for the infrastructure as well as the applications. I think again, ML will play a big role. You have to, kind of get the telemetry logs, analyze them in real time, and make the automated corrections in milliseconds, and especially for the future applications like autonomous vehicles, you can't have your data going out to cloud and, analyzed and send the corrective actions to say apply brake. That cannot happen, right? So all these applications, the future applications, I think AI is going to play a big role in general, right? But I think these are top 3 or 4 areas where I think AI can definitely help in the next phase of evolution.
Great use cases. Awesome. My next question is, has COVID impacted customer and employee experience in your organization? And were there any, best practices that you followed, which you think you can share with us?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this will not be specific to Calsoft. I think like everybody else, all other organizations, we also scrambled as lockdowns, loomed, either last year or this year, right? And we never had 100% engineers connecting over VPN. Very simple things, but no organization would have tried and tested these kind of scenarios, right? 100% workforce connecting to your VPN and putting a lot of stress on your infrastructure, and on top of it, having limited IT team available to help, because there were like limited number of people who could travel to the offices, right? So those challenges, like every other organizations we faced, onboarding, data protection, I think I covered some of them already, right? But I think you have to give it to the human race. We are known as a race. I think human race is known for quick adaptations, and during I think COVID scenarios and situations, I think people have shown that adaptation capabilities, raised their hands and did whatever was required to streamline the day-to-day operations and the delivery, right? And again, not specific to Calsoft. It applies to everyone, right? And I think that includes our engineers and the workforce as well. And there have been a lot of strategies, as you talked about strategies, right? From the workforce perspective, the strategies were, from the HR perspective, have more connects. You couldn't do in-person get-togethers or team building exercises. People were really busy. I think people put in a lot more effort during the COVID times as compared to what they could. Of course, because of various reasons like travel and so on. So people were stressed, and not just work-wise, but also mentally. I think it was very stressful situation. So I think HR, played a huge role. From the engineering perspective, I think the processes around the deliveries, we had to evolve, around work from home, first kind of scenarios, right? Previously, we used to have like one, ceremony in a day, like 15-minute ceremony. But during COVID, we started doing one ceremony in the morning and then another one in the evening. We had to handhold a lot of junior engineers, not just relying on them to deliver what was told, but also handhold them throughout the day, right? Which typically was possible, when people were working, on premise in the offices, right? So there were, adjustments that not just the organization, but every individual had to make, right? So that's about the employee experience, that changed. But also more importantly, the customers, right? And I would say, software as an industry, I think we were honestly lucky, in my opinion, because our customers also, were taking the cognizance of the dynamic situation, right?
Correct.
And they were very, very considerate of what was happening on the ground, right?
Correct.
Suddenly an architect would get impacted with COVID, and he would be out of action for 2-3 weeks.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So customers also were very considerate. They could relate and they could realize that everyone is scrambling and trying to do their best. I think what helped was over communication within the team, but also with the customer. Right, we were having a lot more conversations with the customer, and customers were also open to have that conversation. Typically, we generally have like one conversation a week if the things are moving well. But in the COVID scenario, we started having maybe 2 or 3 conversations a week, and that helped. The second aspect was more proactive backup planning, right? As I said, you can't really predict who's going to be out of action for next 2-3 days.
Correct.
Suddenly, the news would come out,
Yeah.
and unless you do proactive backup planning in terms of infrastructure, in terms of your project planning, in terms of your resources and skills, nothing would work, right? So I think COVID taught all of us to do more proactive backup planning and not take anybody just for taken for granted, right?
Right.
That's not feasible, right? So we have a lot of mature processes, and I'm sure the industry and all the companies have worked on their processes with work from home and disparate and disaggregated distributed engineering teams. Yeah, I think that's the way forward.
Awesome. One last question to you on this is, we talked about edge computing a couple of times. How do you think it will help the enterprise customers?
So that's a great question, and that's very close to my heart as well. One thing to begin with is edge computing means different things to different people. People have different forms and shapes of edge computing in mind. For me, any computing which is done close to the consumer, right, is how I look at the edge. It could be your mobile phone. It could be, a cluster that, maybe your service provider puts in your enterprise. It could be a small data center that service providers would put under your cell towers. So different things. It could be a box in your car itself, which does a lot of analysis itself, maybe in the autonomous cars, which will be there in the future, right? So that's what different shapes and forms of edge are. I think different users will have or will see different benefits, right? From the enterprise perspective, with edge you can run the machine learning analytics on the data generated within the organization or within their own deployments or within their own networks, right? Instead of sending the data back to the cloud and doing a lot of analytics there, you could actually speed up a lot of processes, take more proactive actions, right? Enable more use cases, right? So all of those things from the enterprise perspective will be possible with edge computing, right? For manufacturing, for example, manufacturing plants will have more and more IoT sensors deployed, right? And unless you have the edge computing clusters inside your factories, inside your manufacturing units, you'll have to send all of that data to the cloud. And if you want to turn off a machine based on the sensor data, it might take few milliseconds, and things can go drastically wrong for critical manufacturing organizations, right? And that's where edge computing for manufacturing would be extremely important to provide closed loop automation. And for consumers like you and me, things like autonomous cars, I think I talked about it. Things like video 360. If there are matches happening, IPL today, maybe today, for this leg of IPL, people can go and watch matches in the stadiums. But in the previous version, the first leg of IPL, the stadiums were completely empty, right? And if we had video 360 kind of applications, each one of us could have watched the matches sitting at our home, but still getting the feeling as if we are sitting in the stadium, right? So those are the kind of experiences. We talked about user experiences from digital economy perspective. I think those are the things that can, be made possible only with edge computing. There's no other option apart from edge computing to really get us to that next evolution in the digital arena. And that's why I think edge computing holds the big promise, not just from the technology perspective, but actually from the use cases perspective as well.
Great. I think these have been wonderful insights, Nitin, and I'm sure there are very good key takeaways for our viewers that they can get out. So, thank you so much for joining on this platform and sharing your best practices with us. It's a pleasure to host you again.
Oh, thanks for having me here, Khushbu. It was great interacting with you, and I look forward to more such interactions with you and CIU News as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's an honor. Thank you
Thanks.
so much, Nitin.
Thanks. Have a good day.
You too. Bye.